In the previous videos, I read paragraph 1 and 2 and analyzed. Now let me read paragraph 3 from Lisa Davis' essay, Where Do We Stand? Everyone who has ever felt cramped in a crowd knows that the skin is not the body's only boundary. We each wear a zone of privacy like a hoop skirt, inviting others in or keeping them out with body language. By how closely we approach, the angle at which we face them, the speed with which we break a gaze, it's a subtle code, but one we use and interpret easily, indeed automatically, having absorbed the vocabulary from infancy. We read. Now let's analyze. So in the first paragraph, Lisa Davies presents a scene, dramatic scene, and hints about the conflict or tension. In the second paragraph, she clearly tells about this tension where the American is feeling vaguely bullied and the Middle Easterner is feeling chilled. Now in the third paragraph, she further develops her, her content of the non-verbal communication and the use of space in public places. And she says that uh, the skin is not the body's only boundary. In the second sentence, we have the pronoun we. Now let's ask a question. Who does this we refer to? And there is a hint. We each wear a zone of privacy. Now we know that it is the American people uh, who have this sense of private space. In the essay American Values and Assumptions, Gary Elton, in his essay, he talks about the concept of privacy in American culture. Privacy is an American value. Uh, One meaning of this privacy is that every American assumes that certain space around their body is a private space where other people should not encroach. So this we tells that this speaker is American and this speaker is talking to American audience. We Americans, wear a zone of privacy like a hoop skirt. Here is a figure of speech using like. Let me ask Gemini what a hoop skirt is. Okay. What is a hoop skirt? And we read, a hoop skirt is a wide, bell-shaped undergarment that was popular during the Victorian era, mid-19th century. It was designed to create a voluminous, exaggerated silhouette, often with a dramatic bustle at the back. The skirt was typically made of a frame of hoops or steel rings that expanded outward from the waist, giving it its distinctive shape. The hoops were often covered in fabric or crinoline to create a full flowing appearance. Hoop skirts were a symbol of status and wealth during the Victorian era and were often worn for formal occasions and social events. Let me show a picture from Google image of a hoop skirt, then it will make the meaning clearer. Hoop skirt. Okay, here you can see very clearly. So this is a kind of net-like structure, and what the hoop skirt does is it creates a boundary which because of which people cannot easily touch your body. Right? Let me read the line here. Like a hoop skirt, inviting others in or keeping them out with body language. So now, if you have a lover, if the girl has a lover, for example, so the lover can come too close. If you watch HBO movies, in a romantic scene, you will see the hero slips inside the hoop skirt of the heroine because she is inviting him. Whereas if the girl is not inviting the person, then he has to remain aware that that skirt works as a boundary line, as a border, right? Inviting others in or keeping them out with a body language. So in this paragraph, Lisa Davis introduces the idea of body language. What is body language? How closely we approach someone. See, non-verbal communication. The subject matter of this essay is non-verbal communication. And now she again introduces this idea here, the body language. What is body language? How closely we approach. In the very first paragraph, you saw the Middle Easterner was approaching the American too close, and the American felt uncomfortable. So here again in paragraph 3, she mentions how closely we approach, the angle at which we face others, the speed with which we break a gaze. This is all body language. And this body language, she says, it is a subtle language, subtle code, but one we use and interpret easily. What does she mean? If you're an American, you pretty well know how Americans use body language. If you're a Nepali, you pretty well know how a Nepali uses body language. We clearly understand how people use body language in our culture, but we may not understand how people use body language in another culture. For example, in the first para, you saw that the Middle Easterner does not understand how Americans use body language, and Americans do not come too close to another fellow. Whereas the American doesn't understand how the Middle Easterners use body language, and the Middle Easterners like coming too close. Do you see? Both the American and the Middle Easterner do not understand how body language, how space is used in their culture. And this is what creates a problem. It's a subtle code. It means the use of body language, but one we use and interpret easily. Why? Because we know our culture. Indeed, automatically. Why? Because we know our culture, having absorbed the vocabulary from infancy. As we grow in our culture from our childhood, we watch everybody around us, how they use non-verbal behavior, how they use body language, how closely they approach, at what angle they face each other, with what speed do they exchange gazes, and we easily understand what is normal body language and what is abnormal body language. So in paragraph 3, Lisa Davis again further intensifies her idea of body language and her idea of how people use spaces. Now let's move to paragraph 4 and see what is there. At least we assume we are reading it right. But now look, the word but is a contrast marker. The word but is a contrast marker, and we use but to separate two opposing ideas. The first sentence in paragraph 1 says, at least we assume we are reading it right. The second sentence begins with but. That means the idea in first sentence in paragraph 4 and the idea in the second sentence in paragraph 4 are opposite. Let's read. But from culture to culture, from group to group, within a single country, even between the sexes, the language of space has distinctive accents, confusing umlauts, that leaves a lot of room for misinterpretation, and the stakes have gotten higher as business has become increasingly international and populations multicultural. So a new breed of consultants has appeared in the last few years, interpreting for globe trotters of all nationalities the meaning and the use of personal space. So this paragraph 4 is utterly important in this essay because in this paragraph the writer introduces the thesis statement of her essay. So what is a thesis statement? Let's ask Gemini and read how she defines a thesis statement. What is a thesis statement in an academic essay? Okay. A thesis statement in an academic essay is a concise statement that presents the main argument or point of the essay. Now come back to paragraph 4. This sentence number 2. But from culture to culture, from group to group, within a single country, even between the sexes, the language of space has distinctive accents, confusing umlauts. This sentence is the main argument or main point of this essay. I'll come back to this sentence and explain you. Wait a minute. Let me read this idea about thesis statement. The thesis statement serves as a roadmap for the entire piece of the writing, guiding the reader through the writer's analysis, evidence, and conclusion. So it says that a thesis statement serves as a roadmap. Now let me take it to the essence of this thing. Look, it says that from culture to culture. Now, if you go to para 5, the writer starts discussing space using Saudi Arabian culture. Then she discusses space using American culture. Then she discusses space using Japanese culture. Then she discusses space use in Mediterranean culture. Then she discusses space use in South American societies. Then she discusses space use in North European culture. Then she discusses space use in Middle Eastern culture. Then she discusses space use in uh, other cultures. So do you see the first part of the thesis is when it says from culture to culture the language of space differs, and from para 5 onwards she shows how different cultures use space differently in different cultures. Then from group to group within a single country. If you go below, you will find examples how inside a single country also, for example, Japanese people use space one way in their homes and use space another way in the offices, right? She brings more example how within a single country, like for example, Russia, how within a single country the Estonians use space in one way, whereas the Caucasians use space another way. The idea, the language from group to group within a single country, even between sexes. In some paragraphs, Lisa Davis discusses how men use space and how women use space in public places. So let me take you to the Gemini's answer here. The thesis statement serves as a roadmap for the entire essay, guiding a reader through the writer's analysis, evidence, and conclusion. The thesis statement is one sentence that presents the plan of the essay. It is a sentence that functions as a map for the traveler. It is this sentence which tells where the essay is heading. Here are some key characteristics of a good thesis statement. Let's read. Clear and concise. Look here. This thesis statement presented in paragraph 4, sentence number 2 is very clear. It is concise because it is presented in a single sentence. Though there are uh, more than one clauses, but it's a single sentence. So this statement is concise. This statement is clear. Okay. It should be easy to understand and avoid ambiguity. There is no confusion. Specific. It should focus on a particular aspect of the topic rather than being overly broad. Come back to this. Look, this statement focuses very clearly on the topic of language of space. And if you remember, let me take you to the uh, paragraph number 2. At the end of the paragraph number 2, you have that expression language of space. In paragraph 3, that idea of language of space was further developed with the concept of zone of privacy and body language. In paragraph 4, again, the thesis statement clearly presents the focus of the essay, that is the language of space. Now come back to this idea here. It should focus on a particular aspect of topic. What is that particular aspect? How people use space. Then arguable. It should present a claim that can be supported by evidence and analysis. Come back and see what is the claim. Look here. Very clear claim. What is the claim? The language of space has different accent, confusing umlauts. That means people from culture to culture, from group to group within one culture, one country, and even between male and female, do not use space the same way. And this creates confusion. The claim is very clear. People do not use space the same way around the world, and this difference in their use of space creates confusion. Okay, so there is a very clear claim. You can agree with the claim or you can disagree with the claim. Arguable means you can agree or disagree. Relevant to the topic. It should directly address the prompt or question given. Now look again in the essay. What is the topic of the essay? Where do we stand? What does it mean? How we use space. And the topic of the essay is how we use space. And the thesis statement is also talking about the language of space. So it is the thesis presents the thesis is very relevant to the topic. For example, we won't read the example because I have used this information given by Gemini in relation to the essay itself and made you understand. So once again, before I move ahead, let me tell you, paragraph 4 is the heart of this essay. And in an essay, the thesis statement is the heart of the essay. Just as the heart pumps blood throughout the body, the thesis statement pumps ideas throughout the essay. Just as the heart controls every other organs in the body, the thesis statement controls ideas in all paragraphs throughout the body. Just as the heart uh, connects the whole organs of the body, the thesis statement connects all other ideas and creates unity. The thesis statement is a single sentence that presents the central idea of this essay. If anybody asks you what is the central idea of Lisa Davis' essay, your simple answer should be Lisa Davis argues that from culture to culture, from group to group, even within a single country, even between the sexes, language space has distinctive accents, confusing umlaut. What is accent? Accent is the very minor, unnoticeable differences in the people pronounce words in a language. What does it mean? even inside the same culture, even within a single culture, different people use space differently, and this difference creates confusion, right? And look what C further says, that means the fact that people use space differently, that leaves a lot of room for misinterpretation. You saw this misinterpretation right in the first paragraph. Do you remember? In the first paragraph, the dramatic scene, the Middle Easterner approaches the American closely while having the conversation, and the American misunderstands the Middle Easterner, thinks that this guy must be a queer fellow. Why is he coming too close to me? Right? Look here, that leaves a lot of room for misinterpretation. So the Middle Easterner in the opening scene in paragraph 1, he has one understanding of language of space, whereas the American has another understanding of the language of space. As a result, there emerges misinterpretation, confusion. That leaves a lot of room for misinterpretation, and the stakes have gotten higher as business has become increasingly international. Now, Lisa Davis says why this issue is important, because today we are in the era of globalization, and a lot of people, billions of people are moving from one culture to another culture. And when the whole world is melting like a melting pot coming together, it's even more important that we understand how different people in different cultures use space, because today within our country we may be meeting people from many other countries, right? Read ahead. Become increasingly international and populations multicultural. So, conclusion. So is a conclusion marker. A new breed of consultants has appeared in the last few years, interpreting for globetrotters of all nationalities the meaning and use of personal space. So, this essay is about the meaning and use of personal space. This essay is about the language of space. This essay is about the misinterpretation of the language of space. This essay is about the problems that are created when people fail to understand the right meaning and use of personal space. So I wrap up. In this video, I read paragraph 3 and 4, and I focused more on paragraph 4, where I analyzed about the thesis statement. I defined what a thesis statement is, and I gave you example of thesis statement. If you search in my YouTube channel, you will find other videos of last year where I focus more about this paragraph in classroom. You can check and watch them. But I hope this explanation helps you understand what a thesis statement is. Here is assignment. Note down the question. Write the question. Take your pen. Write the question. What do you understand by a thesis statement? Question mark. Second part of the question. What is the thesis statement in this essay? Second part of question. Third part. What is the importance of a thesis statement? Explained with example. Now, peacefully, calmly write the answer of this question and bring this written answer to class as an assignment when you come from my class. In the next video, I'll discuss paragraph 4 onwards. I stop here.